LiberalViewer presents.
So, welcome to LiberalViewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup. Thanks for joining me back live tonight with that bogus copyright claim from the Fullscreen Network behind me. I've picked out 29 of the weekend's best clips for what should be a great show for you all tonight. As usual, my clips come mostly from the Sunday morning news analysis shows from the big five corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media here in the United States. And as usual, I'll also have some political comedy clips for you from HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher from last Friday night. As for this week's topics, you can see all the topics I'm covering listed down in the video description, and if you're watching this as a recorded show, you should see time indexes down there to skip to the topics that most interest you. I'll start with the 2016 U.S. presidential campaign, which took up the bulk of the Sunday morning shows. I'll actually have 16 clips on the Republican side of the race, and then another 9 on the Democratic side, leaving just one clip on race, one clip on Cuba, one clip on ISIS, and one clip on atheism to finish up the show. Now, to start out the Republican side, I want to start with the usual political comedy with 2 clips I took from Bill Maher's monologue last Friday. The first one referencing that big topic on last week's show, the war between Donald Trump and Fox News, specifically Donald Trump's conflict with Fox News anchor Megyn Kelly that Bill Maher referred to as Periodgate, over in this clip.
You got to give Trump credit for this. No teleprompter. He just pulls it out of his whatever. Oh, you saw that? Yes. This is the latest scandal, Periodgate. He was mad at Megyn Kelly for asking him rough questions at the debate, and he implied that she was being mean to him because she was menstruating. That was, I mean, he said she had blood coming out of her eyes, she had blood coming out of her whatever. What could he have meant? Stigmata? Is that what he was talking about? Yes, she's like our Lord and Savior. And it's so funny, you know, Fox, who was trying to destroy Donald Trump, they said after they said it's very important that we defend Megyn Kelly, take a principled stand, protect our beloved employee. Then they looked at the ratings from the debate with Donald Trump, and they were like, maybe Megyn was on the reg. You know, And Trump said, trying to recover, Trump said he is open to having a female vice president. I mean, minus those few days when they're a little crazy, because, you know, all right, you're a great...
I enjoyed that analysis from Bill Maher, though I'm not sure if that ending was meant to parody Donald Trump's sexism or reveal a little of Bill Maher's own sexism, and I've actually considered doing an edited, produced video this week about that war between Donald Trump and Fox News and who won the war, based especially on the reporting in New Yorker magazine of Gabriel Sherman, who wrote the history of Roger Ailes' creation of Fox News in the book The Loudest Voice in the Room. You can see that right over there because I usually have it during my broadcasts, and you can let me know down in the comment section if you'd like to see me make that video this week. But now the next joke I want to show you is also about Donald Trump, but it's from a little earlier in Bill Maher's monologue, and it's actually not so much of a joke, as I'll explain after I let you watch what Bill Maher had to say over in this clip.
Trump said today he had a plan to defeat ISIS. I would laugh, except his plan to defeat Fox News worked. It's interesting. Every week, Donald Trump says something crazy, insane, outlandish, and everybody goes, oh, that's it. That's his downfall. And then he's fine. He's like Godzilla. Everything they throw at the monster makes him stronger. You know, people thought last week that after the debate performance, Trump would go away. You're so silly. You were watching the debate with your brain. To understand the Republican mindset, you have to watch it with your balls. When Donald Trump says, I will make China behave, the brain goes, what? And the balls go, damn straight. And it's about time somebody said that about
Now, you might think that was a joke from Bill Maher about Donald Trump supporters watching the debates with their balls, which react to whatever Trump says by saying, damn straight, and it's about time somebody said it. But strangely enough, over on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos this morning, former Republican strategist Matthew Dowd went to the Iowa State Fair to talk to actual Trump supporters, and what he found is almost what Bill Maher joked about, turned into reality over in this clip.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Billy Wilson. I'm from Marshalltown, Iowa.
Hi, my name is Jan. I'm a lifelong Iowan.
My name is Mark Blessing. I'm a Republican.
My name's Sierra. I'll be a senior in high school.
Who are you going to vote for?
Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
What is driving your vote for Donald Trump?
Number one, he's not a politician.
I think his willingness to just speak out and speak his mind, I think that's very important.
And he won't back down. And that's what I think I want to see in someone that's running for president.
I think he'll be an excellent president, and I think he'll bring jobs back.
What would worry you in the next 6-8 months?
His words, maybe.
So when you say his words, you mean like, so he pops off and says something?
Yeah, I mean, he's not a politician. He's not used to having to practice, what to say. He speaks his mind like, a lot of people do, not like a politician would.
Does any of the things that have been said about him in the last few weeks cause you concern? That the name calling, the sort of the bullying that people have said about him?
We're so used to hearing that. It's a broken record. So it doesn't bother me one iota. I just don't think he's getting a fair rap on a lot of these issues that I've been seeing on television.
I agree with what they say. I think Megyn Kelly, I think she really treated him bad.
Is your reaction in support of Donald Trump more of a gut reaction to the person that he is and how he comes across, and less something that has to do with a specific list of issues?
Definitely, yeah.
It is for me as well. I don't see that political thing that we've been seeing these past many years. It's just a gut feeling that I have for him.
It's a long race. Do you think he has the capacity to go the distance?
I believe he can. If he can fight all these people and believe in himself like he is, he can.
I think he can.
Yeah, he's ready.
So, like I said, you could see from that report from ABC's Matthew Dowd, former Republican strategist for George W. Bush, that from his talks with Trump supporters, it looks like they really do react with, well, I guess they were saying their gut, but what Bill Maher called their balls and not their brains, not anything having to do with policy. And as for whether that's going to be a long-term campaign support, if that's going to turn into long-term campaign support for Donald Trump, that, I guess, as the pundits always say, remains to be seen. But Donald Trump was very successful talking to voters in Iowa at the Iowa State Fair. I'm going to show a couple reports on what went on at the Iowa State Fair. First, Martha Raddatz, who always seems to embed herself with the military and with the terrorist forces in Jordan and Syria or Iraq, and then the anti-ISIS forces in Jordan. And I've shown so many clips of her over the years embedding herself. Well, here she embeds herself with Trump and actually takes a ride on the Trump helicopter, reporting on the Trump phenomenon at the state fair in Iowa, along with some of the reactions of the Republicans over in this clip. It's about 4 minutes long, but definitely worth watching. You can let me know what you think about it while you're watching it here.
Organizers say 1 million people will visit the Iowa State Fair, but it's just one person who managed to steal the show this weekend. We were with billionaire and GOP frontrunner Donald Trump every step of the way. Trump, front and center from the start.
You are going to love me in terms of immigration and illegal immigration. We're building a wall. It's going to be a wall that is not, nobody's going through my wall. Trump builds walls, I build walls. I don't think I've made mistakes. I mean, every time somebody says I made a mistake, they do the polls and my numbers go up. So I guess I haven't made any mistakes. You want to know?
Yeah.
What things am I going to do different for this guy? Almost everything. Because that's what has to happen. Good. Everything we do is wrong. The military, we're not taking care of the military, not taking care of our vets. We're not taking care of our country. We're not taking care of our finances. We're not taking care of our trade deals. When was the last time you saw this country have a victory? We don't have victories.
This morning, so many new questions about 2016. Can Donald Trump keep up this momentum? How will his opponents step out of his shadow? We'll ask two top contenders shortly. And what does all of this mean for a race that's unlike anything we've seen before? Even before his helicopter landed, Donald Trump was the star attraction at the Iowa State Fair this weekend. Forget the livestock and the fried-on-the-stick delicacies. It was Trump, Trump, When the billionaire candidate finally descended from the sky, we joined a few lucky kids for a ride better than any roller coaster.
This is pretty exciting, huh? You don't think this is a little much?
No.
It's very Trump, right?
Yeah, it's me. I am who I am. It's me. It's good for the kids. The kids love it.
But you know where we were 4 years ago here. The people at the bottom of the polls didn't eventually do so well.
Who was here? Who was?
Well, you had Michelle Bachmann and Ira Stronghold and Rick Santorum took it.
They're not me. They're not me.
Did you get to
I've had a lot of fun. You know, I've never run for office before. I love what's happening.
Welcome to Iowa.
His brashness, outspokenness, clearly the draw here.
Would President Trump be the same as candidate Trump with foreign leaders? Can you imagine yourself?
I think even better. I think even better. Because foreign leaders, I believe I've had great relationships over the years, and you can see that. I've had great relationships with people over the years. I think even better. I'm doing well. I'm leading in every poll, the little ones, the big ones. I'm leading, so importantly to me, I'm leading in Iowa.
Make America great again. Make America great again.
While in the coming months, he promises details about how he will solve America's problems, he had few specifics this weekend.
Let me ask you a serious foreign policy question. What would you do about ISIS using chemical weapons?
I think it's disgraceful that they're allowed, and you can't allow it to happen, and you have to go in and just wipe the hell out of them.
What do you do? Do you send in ground troops?
Say that again. Go ahead.
What Trump wanted to talk about was Hillary.
They're saying Hillary didn't draw this kind of crowd.
Not even close.
After a few pork chops, I caught up with Trump again to ask about another female opponent.
What do you think about Carly Fiorina? You had some pretty tough words for her.
She's a very nice woman. She got fired. She did a terrible job at Hewlett-Packard. She lost in a landslide. Other than that, she's a very nice woman.
Overshadowed by Trump's juggernaut, it was hard for other Republicans to be heard. Senator Rick Santorum, who won Iowa 4 years ago, decided a direct comparison was the best strategy.
You have someone with a parade, with all this Secret Service, you got someone flying around in a helicopter, and you got a guy flipping burgers. Who do you want to be your president? Who's going to understand what you're going through in your life more? What you saw, or the guy at the grill?
So, like I said, that was about 4 minutes long from ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, guest hosted by Martha Raddatz, and she does great reporting as usual. I thought that what was that, about 15 different clips all put together there with her narration, and I thought she gave a real feel both for Trump's views, such as they are, and the reaction he got at the state fair in Iowa. I'm going to show another report on Trump in Iowa. This is much shorter. This is about a minute long from Dana Bash over on CNN's State of the Union. You know, Jake Tapper wasn't hosting, but he started this new tradition on State of the Union that he starts off by saying, what is the State of the Union for the week? And Dana Bash, as the guest host, will tell you what the State of the Union is. It's very appropriate for the state fair in Iowa. And then she shows how Donald Trump was attacking Jeb Bush on Iraq, and then shows the latest poll of how Trump is doing in Iowa over in this clip.
We turn to the State of our Union, which this morning is deep fried. The presidential race decamped to Des Moines this weekend for the Iowa State Fair, where the candidates competed for attention and affection with corn dogs. Republican frontrunner Donald Trump arrived in his helicopter and offered a free ride to the kids, but not before jabbing his rival, Jeb Bush.
Statement. He said the United States has to prove to Iraq that we have skin in the game. We've spent $2 trillion, thousands of lives lost, wounded warriors who I love all over the place. And he said we have to prove that we have skin in the game. I think it may be one of the dumbest statements I've ever heard.
Now, Trump is, as he never tires of pointing out, leading in the polls. Our latest CNN poll shows him topping the field in Iowa. But when it comes to the question of who Iowa Republicans think best represents their values, the field shifts a bit. Near the top of that list is former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, who joins me now live. Good morning, Governor. Thanks.
I'll actually show a clip of that interview with former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee a little bit later, but I want to finish up the Trump coverage. I don't want to put too much emphasis on Trump, but there is always so much Trump coverage on the Sunday morning shows since Trump got into the race that if I'm going to represent what was on those shows, I have to do some Trump coverage. I'm going to do one more coverage of polls. This is Fox News Sunday. Chris Wallace showed the latest Fox News poll post-debate. How did Donald Trump do after the debate? And there's actually something here that I think is unfair to Donald Trump. First they show, who's winning, but then at the end they ask who won the debate and who lost the debate. And the way they do it by subtracting the winner from the loser and getting a net score gets rid of the fact that Donald Trump is the number one, I think either number one or number two as to who won the debate, but they cover that up in this Fox News clip talking about their poll results, as I'll discuss after you see that clip here.
Again, from Fox News in Washington. Well, there's been a big shakeup in the Republican presidential race since the GOP debate. Today, we have the results of the first Fox News national poll since then. Donald Trump still leads the field with 25% support among GOP primary voters. But Dr. Ben Carson has now jumped into second place at 12%. Also on the rise, Senator Ted Cruz and Carly Fiorina. Among those who've dropped since the debate, Jeb Bush down 5 points to 9%. It's his first time in single digits since April. When it comes to who won the debate, the highest net scores go to Fiorina, Carson, Governor John Kasich, and Senator Marco Rubio. And the lowest net scores go to Chris Christie, Rand Paul, and Donald Trump. Joining me now.
Yeah, if you just looked at who did the best job, 19% of the respondents thought that Trump did the best job in the debate, and that was higher than Carly Fiorina. What was she, 13%? You can go back and look, but because 32% of the respondents thought he lost the debate, they subtracted that, and so even though more people thought he won the debate than any other candidate, Fox News manipulated it in an anti-Trump way. Not, I'm not Donald Trump's biggest fan or any kind of Donald Trump fan, but you got to admit that Fox News manipulated that to make it look like Donald Trump wasn't the winner when more people thought he was the winner than anyone else. Anyway, you can let me know what you think down in the comment section. I'm glad that I'm doing this live, and I have over 100 live viewers, and you're posting a lot of comments that I'm reading while the clips are playing. Now I'm actually going to show 3 clips of Donald Trump himself not calling in by phone to one of these shows, but this week over on NBC's Meet the Press, Chuck Todd got a face-to-face interview. It wasn't live, it was on the show, it was recorded. Part of it actually takes place, it looks like, on a private jet or something, but the first clip I want to show from NBC's Meet the Press is Chuck Todd asking Donald Trump where he gets his military advice from, and he says something that is kind of a gaffe, I would think, although he seems to be gaffe-proof. He says, well, I watch the Sunday morning shows, and, I'm a big fan of the Sunday morning shows, but I don't think that's where a potential president should be getting his military advice. And you'll see that Chuck Todd follows up and gets him to name a couple people. One is John Bolton, who was the George W. Bush ambassador to the United Nations, never confirmed by the Senate, and is really because he was so right-wing conservative, and now he's always on Fox News bashing Obama. And then the other guy, who's Colonel Jack, and I'm blanking on his last name, but you'll hear Trump say it, is actually an NBC News an NBC News analyst, which makes me think that Donald Trump is kind of kissing up to Chuck Todd on Meet the Press, because that's who's asking the question, the guy who works for NBC. and I'll discuss that a little more after. Let me see. I actually, in my notes, the second guy was Colonel Jack Jacobs. Jack Jacobs is the other guy that Trump gets his advice from after he says he gets it from the Sunday morning shows in this clip.
Who do you talk to for military advice right now?
Well, I watch the shows. I mean, I really see a lot of great, you know, when you watch your show and all of the other shows and you have the generals and you have certain people that you like.
But is there somebody, is there a go-to for you? You know,
probably there are two or three.
Every presidential candidate has a go-to.
Probably there are two or three. I mean, I like Bolton. I think he's, you know, tough cookie, knows what he's talking about. Jacobs is a good guy.
You mean Ambassador John Bolton?
Yes.
You mean
think
Colonel
he's
Jack
terrific.
Jacobs?
Colonel Jack Jacobs is a good guy, and I see him on occasion.
You wrote this in 2011.
So yeah, like I said, first he says the Sunday morning news shows, and I'm a big fan of the Sunday morning corporate news analysis shows. That's why I've been watching them for like 20 years, and I actually do learn a lot from them, but that's not the only place you need to get your information about military matters, especially if you're running for president. I mean, I have a degree in history from one of the top Ivy League universities, and I concentrated in military history, and I got to learn about and even meet some of the top thinkers back when I was in college. I remember one of the people who gave me a seminar, lectured at one of my seminars one week, was this Sovietologist from Stanford named Condoleezza Rice, who went on to bigger and worser things, I guess. But that's it for my name dropping. I want to move on to the next Donald Trump answer about a really important issue, immigration. You know, that's the first big Donald Trump gaffe in his announcement that he was running for president, was about the Mexicans being rapists and criminals, and he assumed some might be good people or whatever it was he said. Well, he's actually come out with an 8-page immigration policy, and I actually put a link down to Donald Trump's website. If you don't want to go to Donald Trump's website, don't click on that link, but it's to his website where this policy has been posted, and he gave a copy of it to Chuck Todd on NBC's Meet the Press, who summarized it and then asked him about it, and I don't think he really defended it well, and I really don't like the part where he said no more birthright citizenship, and then the end is kind of ludicrous, as I'll discuss after you watch that clip over here.
Welcome back. Few things that Donald Trump has said during the campaign has attracted more attention than his negative comments about Mexican immigrants. However, he's been light on detail on how he'd addressed illegal immigration. Well, yesterday on his plane, he handed me his immigration plan. About an 8-page plan. He wants to end the automatic right of citizenship for anyone born in the country. That's probably the biggest news in the plan. And he plans to immediately rescind President Obama's executive order that stopped the deportations of some younger undocumented immigrants who had entered the country as children. Here's a little bit more from him.
The executive order gets rescinded. One good thing
you'll rescind that one too?
One good thing
You'll rescind the Dream Act executive order.
You're going to have to.
DACA.
We have to make a whole new set of standards. And when people come in, they have to come in.
So you're going to split up families.
Chuck,
you're going to deport children.
Chuck, no. We're going to keep the families together. We have to keep the families together.
But you're going to keep them together out.
But they have to go.
What if they have no place to go?
We will work with them. They have to go. Chuck, we either have a country or we don't have a country. Either we have a country or not.
How do you do it?
The cost of doing it. Look at the cost of what we have right now.
The cost of doing it.
Let me ask you this. Do you think
I understand that, but how do you do it?
Do you think there's tremendous cost for the illegals that are in here right now?
Of course there's cost to it.
Okay, tremendous. Do you think there's tremendous crime being committed by illegals?
There's definitely evidence that it's happened. It's
tremendous, far greater than what they do. And you see it all over just last night. All over. We will do it, and we will expedite it so people can come back in.
It's still not clear.
Chuck, it'll work out so well. You will be so happy. In 4 years, you're going to be interviewing me, and you're going to say, what a great job you've done, President Trump.
So what do you think? If I'm still doing this show in 4 years, will I be showing you clips of Chuck Todd on NBC's Meet the Press saying, President Trump, what a great job you're doing? What do you think? Somehow, I just don't see how we get from here to there, but I guess anything's possible. As I showed from the clips last week, I think it was Bill Maher tried to make this comparison between Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan actually came up in this kind of gotcha question that Chuck Todd asked Donald Trump in the last clip from that interview I'm going to show you. This zeroes in on Donald Trump's big slogan, you know, whatever meaning is in the slogan, "Make America Great Again." And so Chuck Todd sort of drills into that and then shows how Donald Trump has been sort of a nationalist on trade going back 30 plus years over in this clip.
Your slogan, we're going to hear it a lot today at the fair, we're going to make America great again. When was the last time America was great?
I would say during the administration of Ronald Reagan, you felt proud to be an American. You felt really proud. I don't think since then, to any great extent, people were proud.
Then let me ask you this. I'm not trying to play a little gotcha here, but in 1987, you took out a full-page ad. This is during the Reagan administration, and you said this to the American people. For decades, Japan and other nations have been taking advantage of the United States. On message, by the way, it's consistent. The world is laughing at America's politicians as we protect ships we don't own, carrying oil we don't need, destined for allies who won't help. Message-wise, very consistent. But this
from day one, including during the Reagan.
I was just going to say, let's not let our great country be laughed at anymore.
Right.
If that's the last time America was great again, you didn't think America was great then.
No, I thought America was excellent. I think NAFTA was a huge mistake. I thought it was a terrible mistake, and you know that was. But I just think that he set a tone that was an excellent tone for this country. I disagreed with some of his
statements. You seem to like it, but at the time,
well,
this was a fiery guy.
Yeah,
Donald J. Trump of 1987 was not.
Well, it's the same guy.
You're consistent. I'll give you consistency. If you could win as an independent.
I'm not going to go into all that stuff about Trump running as an independent, but those are the three clips from Chuck Todd's interview from Meet the Press this morning of Donald Trump. Apparently there's an even longer interview on the Meet the Press webpage than what was broadcast, which I haven't seen yet. I may go take a look at, just because Donald Trump seems to be more and more of an actual candidate. But I have put a link down in the video description to NBC's Meet the Press to see the whole episode. In fact, all the shows, you can see the whole episode, except maybe I think CNN State of the Union, you can only see limited clips. But the next show I want to show a clip from, also on the Republican race, but no more Donald Trump clips, although this is kind of a reaction to Donald Trump. Not all the clips from the Republican side are going to revolve around Donald Trump, but so much of the race unfortunately has. I'm still less than half an hour into the show. I'm trying to wrap up the Trump part. This is Senator Lindsey Graham over on CBS's Face the Nation responding to a question from the host John Dickerson about, you know, how Donald Trump said that Lindsey Graham had attacked Donald Trump, but now he's really low in the polls, and why is it that attacks on Donald Trump don't work, but his attacks on other people do work. And you can see Lindsey Graham's reaction to the whole Donald Trump phenomenon over in this clip.
From New York. Senator, I want to ask you about Donald Trump. He says that you attacked him and you went nowhere. He attacks his rivals and he either stays solid in the polls or even goes up a little. What do you make of all that?
You know, it's pretty hard for me to understand where this thing is going with the Donald, but at the end of the day, what he said about Senator McCain I thought was out of bounds. But here's the state of play. Our leading Republican is embracing self-deportation, that all the 11 million have to walk back where they came from, and maybe we'll let some of them come back. I just hope we don't go down that road as a party. So our leading contender, Mr. Trump, is going backward on immigration, and I think he's going to take all of us with him if we don't watch it.
So that's a warning from Lindsey Graham on Donald Trump, and I'm going to show another Donald Trump reaction to a non-Trump Republican candidate before I get to some totally non-Trump related clips from the Republican side. This is Dana Bash over on CNN State of the Union asking Mike Huckabee about whether Donald Trump has found a new way to win Iowa. You know, Mike Huckabee won Iowa two elections back in the 2008 election cycle. Mike Huckabee was the winner. In 2012, it was actually Rick Santorum. I don't have any Rick Santorum clips this week, but here's Mike Huckabee saying that Donald Trump may not be the winner of Iowa, and then you'll see this sort of Kardashian comparison from Dana Bash in a follow-up over in this clip.
with yesterday's appearance by Trump, the spectacle on his helicopter giving rides for kids. I spent a lot of time with you back in 2008 when you won Iowa by doing it the old-fashioned way. You had retail politics, you had a ground game. Has Trump changed the game, sir?
I don't think so. I mean, look, Donald Trump is a phenomenon, and he's doing very well. I don't have a helicopter. I don't know that any other candidates will. But let me tell you what we're doing. We're organizing the old-fashioned way. There are 99 counties in Iowa. We've organized 71 of them. In South Carolina, there are 46 counties. We've organized already in 32 of them. We visited over half of the counties in each of those early primary states, and we understand that this is like a NASCAR race. There's 200 laps. We're maybe in lap number 10. We've got a long way to go before anybody's going to see a checkered flag. And you win by organizing and building structure in those counties, because it's not how many headlines you get, it's how many voters show up at the caucuses and the primaries.
So you're announcing this morning that you do have an organizing team in Iowa and South Carolina, but do you really think that that is the way things are going to happen this time? I mean, Donald Trump, yes, I understand it's early, and maybe some of this polling may be because he's different and he is a celebrity and all that, but you never know. This could be kind of the Kardashianization of the caucuses.
Well, it could be, but I want to salute Donald Trump. I mean, he is a master at branding. There's no one like him. He's alone in his class at being able to get attention. Latest survey showed, Dana, that he's getting 10 times the press coverage than any other candidate. Well, I'm just going to be real clear with you. You give me 10 times the coverage that any other candidate gets, I'll be leading in the polls. But the point is, at this stage of the game, the polls don't necessarily reflect where things end up. Otherwise, we'd have had a nominee named Rudy Giuliani 8 years ago and one named Michelle Bachmann 4 years ago. That's why we're not in a panic. We're doing what we know we have to do, and it's been helpful to have done this before. We're organizing, structuring, building this thing one block at a time. It's like a Lego set, and you have to put the pieces together one at a time.
Okay, now as promised, that is, well, it's not the last clip that references Donald Trump. I think there's one more a little bit later where Dr. Ben Carson differentiates himself from Donald Trump, but there's almost no more Donald Trump clips, and I think I got through Donald Trump in, 34 minutes, something like that, 32 minutes? I don't know exactly how long the show's been going. Depends on how much dead air you put at the beginning of it. But I want to move on now to actually a clip of Dr. Ben Carson. This isn't the one of him responding to Donald Trump. This is... excuse me. Before I get to the Ben Carson clip, I actually want to do Governor John Kasich, also from CNN State of the Union. This is one of the positive introductions I saw several of the Sunday morning hosts give to candidates coming on their programs, talking about how they're surging. It seems several candidates are surging. Dr. Ben Carson, you'll see, is surging, and that was reflected in some of the polls I've already shown, although one thing you have to look at these polls a little skeptically, not only that it's just August, but also a lot of these candidates are really close, especially considering the margin of error. But anyway, here's Dana Bash over on CNN State of the Union giving an introduction to John Kasich about how he's surging in the polls, and then asking him, why is he having this rise in the polls, which is kind of a softball question. And he talks about how his super PAC is spending money on the ads, and which Dana Bash actually acknowledges, and in a way that seems to also acknowledge that he's in control of his super PAC, which is illegal because there's not supposed to be any coordination between candidates and super PACs. And then he also talks about the town hall meetings over in this clip.
Clock has begun as we await the next Republican debate right here on CNN, moderated by our own Jake Tapper. Will it reshuffle the race again? The last one catapulted Ohio Governor John Kasich to the top of the pile after a late start. Now he's surging in New Hampshire, neck and neck with another swing state governor, Jeb Bush.
It wasn't that long ago that you were barely registering in the polls here in New Hampshire, and this week one came out that says that you're in third place. I know your super PAC has spent a couple $1 million.
Close to second, huh?
Yeah, close to second. But what do you attribute your rise here to?
Well, I think, the fact that there were some commercials on that, let people kind of know a little bit about me. And then we've done, I don't know how many town halls now and how many meetings. And I was always pretty confident that if we could do that and people could hear my record and get to see me, that, we would probably do pretty well. I'm having an absolute, I am having so much fun. So we go into this town hall and I almost lost my breath.
Why?
Well, because there's so many people in there. It was just like, wow. I mean, this is amazing. And I just wish my wife had been here to see this. And they're just great people. And it's kind of emotional in a way.
Okay, so you...
So that's Governor John Kasich, who I think may be like a sleeper candidate. He may end up being a front runner. Just watch him, because he is the governor of a really important state, and he's got this weird new version of compassionate conservatism where he, wants to cut taxes, but he actually wants to help poor people. I'm not going to show more clips of him on that. I have over the last several weeks, but I now want to move on to Dr. Ben Carson, who was over on Fox News Sunday and got kind of a similar introduction from Chris Wallace, who I think on previous broadcasts of Fox News Sunday has admitted that he's a personal friend of Dr. Ben Carson, and he, shows him surging in the polls and congratulates him on his great performance, and then asks him why outsiders are doing so well. And you'll see Dr. Ben Carson's answer over in this clip.
Joining me now, the candidate with the biggest post-debate bump, Ben Carson, who's campaigning in Iowa at the Iowa State Fair, where he's running second to Trump among likely caucus goers. Dr. Carson, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you, Chris. Nice to be with you.
Well, congratulations on those strong numbers. I not only want to talk to you about your surge in the polls, but also that of Carly Fiorina and Donald Trump. What do you think Republican voters are saying about the appeal of non-politicians?
Well, I think people are starting to recognize that the same old is going to take us to the same place. And, we're sort of at a precipice right now. Are we going to continue down this road, which is leading to a very bad place, or are we going to try to make a change? I think they're also looking at the lives of people who have had very significant accomplishments, because that's what we need right now is accomplishment, not just more of the same.
Now, Dr. Ben Carson was on a couple shows, and I didn't think he got really difficult questioning, especially from Chris Wallace, although the only one who brought up his participation in fetal research or fetal tissue research was Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday. And that's the next clip I want to show you, where, there's been all this there's been this big attack on Planned Parenthood that I covered a few weeks ago, using these doctored videos trying to say that Planned Parenthood has sold fetal body parts for fetal tissue research, although they're actually donated fetal tissue. And then it's kind of this weird attack because none of them are actually coming out against fetal tissue research, which is the real supposed controversy, using fetal tissue. But fetal tissue is really important for research in a lot of areas: Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, polio, all sorts of stuff. And apparently Dr. Ben Carson did some research that used fetal tissue from a tissue bank, and Fox News was the only one to ask him about it over on Fox News Sunday. Chris Wallace asked him about it, but he kind of made it a little softer by pointing out that it was, I think 23 years ago, and didn't really press Dr. Ben Carson on it. And although he didn't really understand what the morning after pill is, he said the morning after pill is RU486, and Dr. Ben Carson didn't really correct him, although talked about progesterone. I'll explain that after you see that clip over here.
Sign, I guess, of your rise in the polls is that you were attacked by the left this week for your involvement in a 1992 study that involved fetal research. The charge is that you're being hypocritical now when you call for defunding Planned Parenthood because you were involved in a study that involved fetal research 23 years ago. And even one of your conservative critics, rivals, Rick Santorum, says that the position you're taking is morally suspect. How do you respond to all this?
I say a lot of people are getting pretty desperate if they're going back almost a quarter of a century looking for things that aren't even true. You know, what I did as a surgeon is take tissue samples and give those to the pathologist, who then compare them with their archives. It's sort of like if you were an archaeologist and you find something in a dig that has some writing on it, you don't recognize it, you give it to your archivist, and they go through all the archives that they've been able to maintain over the many decades, and they say, you know, that looks like something from Mesopotamia. It's the same kind of thing. It has nothing to do with me doing an abortion or even touching fetal tissue. It is a desperate attempt by some people to try to change the argument and also to justify some of the things that are being done by Planned Parenthood. Completely different from anything that I was doing.
So let me ask you, Dr. Carson, where are you? Because there seems to be a little confusion on the issue of abortion and exceptions in the case of rape and incest, because you said recently that if somebody is a victim of that kind of an attack, they can go to an emergency room and get the RU-486 pill, but there are some right-to-life groups that say that is a chemical abortion pill. Where are you on exceptions in the case of abortion, yes or no?
Well, I think that when conception occurs, life occurs. But I do believe in contraception. And at an appropriate time, you have to know what the cycle is. The egg is only fertilizable at certain periods of time. And there are certain types of drugs, progestins, that can prevent ovulation. So let's say someone has been raped and they're administered that drug. It can prevent ovulation, which allows that egg to come down, and because that healthy sperm can live for up to 5 or 6 days. But if the ovulation doesn't occur, then you're not going to have conception. You know, it has to be understood. You have to have people who actually understand how it works.
Of course, one of the people who doesn't understand how it works is Chris Wallace, and the way he asked that question about RU-486, which is actually a drug that causes a chemical abortion, not the morning after pill that, you know, rape victims go and get what's called Plan B, or the morning after pill, which is the exact same hormones as birth control pills, just a larger dose, and it prevents ovulation. It doesn't cause an abortion, but of course the pro-life people actually believe Plan B, the morning after pill, causes an abortion because there's the possibility it might prevent implantation, which is actually a possibility with regular birth control pills. So if that was true, then regular birth control pills would also cause abortions, which is kind of ridiculous because there's not even that much evidence that any kind of birth control pills or morning after pills prevent implantation. They mostly just prevent ovulation, as Dr. Ben Carson was explaining there, but not really pointing out that Chris Wallace didn't know what he was talking about, just saying some people need to know what they're talking about. I want to show one more clip of Dr. Ben Carson, not from Fox News Sunday, but from ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, where he was questioned by Martha Raddatz, and this is where he responds to Donald Trump. You know, I said there'd be one more response to Donald Trump from Dr. Ben Carson. This is Martha Raddatz asking, you know, how he's different from Donald Trump, even though they're both non-politician candidates over in this clip.
Is the clear front runner here in Iowa, but another political outsider surged into second place after the first debate. Dr. Ben Carson joins us now. Great to see you, Dr. Carson.
Thank you.
You're running second to Trump in the latest poll here in Iowa. Neither of you have held elected office. What do you bring to Iowa voters that he does not?
Well, you know, we've all had different life experiences. My life experiences have included a lot of very, very complex situations that people had been trying to solve for a long time that we were able to solve. And it wasn't necessarily because I was the smartest person that ever existed. It was because of being able to use the talent pool that existed around me. I think that's a very important factor. And everybody's different. And You know, the nice thing about this process that we have is people will have an opportunity to see what really works for them.
I think he would probably say he solved some complex problems as well, but certainly not.
Oh, and I just realized I have one more clip that also references Donald Trump. It's actually the last clip from the topic of the Republican side of the 2016 presidential race. This is also from ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, guest hosted by Martha Raddatz. You saw in that last clip, she did the same kind of positive intro that I showed from Dana Bash and from Chris Wallace on State of the Union and Fox News Sunday, giving a little boost to the candidate when introducing them, saying they're surging. You saw that Martha Raddatz said Ben Carson was surging, and here you'll see Martha Raddatz in her question to Carly Fiorina saying, you had this great performance in the debate, a way to build her up and I guess make her feel comfortable. And then Martha Raddatz asks about something Donald Trump said about Carly Fiorina. She better watch it. And you saw in an earlier clip that Donald Trump even went further and talked about how she had a really bad record at Hewlett-Packard and running for Senate. But here you can see Carly Fiorina say she's amused by Donald Trump and doesn't think that he's really going to alienate women from the Republican Party over in this clip.
Turning now to the only woman in the Republican field who is catching fire here in Iowa after her strong performance in the undercard debate last week. Earlier, you heard Donald Trump calling her a nice lady, but he had some harsher words for her on Friday. Watch.
Carly was a little nasty to me. Be careful, Carly. Be careful. But I can't say anything to her because she's a woman, and I don't want to be accused of being tough on women. I can't do that, right?
And Carly Fiorina is here with me. What's your reaction to that?
Oh, honestly, I find it sort of amusing. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about or focusing on what Donald Trump is saying. When his insults are below the belt to someone, then I will make a comment, just as I did when President Obama called anyone who disagreed with his Iranian deal equivalent to the hardliners chanting death to America. I just think insults are not helpful to the political process. We've got a lot of serious issues here, but most of the time I spend my time answering voters' questions and questions from the media.
Do you think Donald Trump will alienate female voters?
Well, it's not clear to me that Donald Trump is a Republican, first of all, based upon his willingness to run a third-party bid and some of the positions that he's taken. But I think it's really important as I go out there and talk, what I hear, what I see, are both men and women who are sick of the professional political class. They're sick of the festering problems in Washington, D.C. They agree that it's ridiculous that in the smartest and richest country in the world that we can't get basic things done like serve our veterans, secure our borders, and hold government accountable for being competent.
So that's 16 clips on the Republican side in about 48 minutes of broadcast, I think, and that's where the Republican field stands as of my show this week, especially in terms of the Iowa State Fair, which is apparently the big event for the 2016 presidential campaign at this point in August. What is it? More than a year before the election and like 170 something days before the Iowa caucuses even. And now I'm going to switch over to the Democratic side. Earlier I showed this Martha Raddatz report from the Iowa State Fair where she was kind of embedded with Donald Trump. I'm going to show the second half of that report now where she talks about the Democratic side. She talks about Hillary Clinton not actually appearing on the Iowa soapbox where candidates sometimes show up to give their policies or give a speech to the Iowa fairgoers. And then Bernie Sanders did show up on the soapbox, and then there's a little history of the Iowa State Fair, and this is just a little under 2 minutes, and I'll talk about it after. No, it's 90 seconds, sorry, over in this clip.
The Democratic candidates drew large crowds as well. Hillary Clinton found plenty of fans, but did not speak at the event's famous soapbox.
I'm a government teacher, so this will give me great street cred.
Her challenger, Senator Bernie Sanders, did. Senator Sanders, no helicopters for you today.
I left it home in the garage.
Do you think it's I want Bernie Sanders or I don't want Hillary Clinton?
No, I think people are responding to our message. There is a deep frustration, which sometimes inside the Beltway pundits don't see. There's a deep frustration with establishment politics and economics. They want the government to represent ordinary people, not billionaires and campaign contributors.
For decades, the state fair has been a must-do for presidential wannabes, and it has a history of tripping them up. Radio Iowa's O.K. Henderson has seen it all.
You want to be careful about the food you eat. You want to be careful about the fashion. And you want to avoid any faux pas.
In 2011, Mitt Romney's famous
corporations are people, my friend,
would come back to haunt him. Today, candidates know too well the power of the fair.
I will try not to do anything that will end my presidential aspirations here today at the soapbox.
I love children. I love Iowa. Great place.
Trump is the clear front.
So, like I said, that's the second half of Martha Raditz's report from the Iowa State Fair, sort of the Democratic side, along with a little history that included some Republicans at the end there. And the next report I want to show was also from ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos. This is their reporter, Jonathan Karl, talking about the big development on the Democratic side, I guess, the big development on Hillary Clinton's email so-called scandal, which has gotten a little bit more in terms of being a real scandal, not a scandal, I guess, in that she turned her server over to the FBI this week. And this is a report from Jonathan Karl on that. It's the best report on this I saw because it includes a fact I didn't hear anywhere else about, how there may be a full backup of that server that includes all the emails she deleted, the private non-government emails, or the ones she decided weren't government emails. And I'll talk about that a little more if you watch that. I think it's about 2 minutes and 20 seconds, the report from ABC this morning here.
The latest.
Out in Iowa this weekend, Hillary Clinton joked about the thousands of emails she deleted from her time as Secretary of State.
I recently launched a Snapchat account. I love it. I love it. Those messages disappear all by themselves.
But her infamous private server is now in the hands of the FBI, which is intensifying its investigation into the handling of classified information in her emails. According to sources familiar with the investigation, it's already been determined that at least 2 of the emails included information that is top secret, some of it from so-called signals intelligence, among the most sensitive intelligence there is. Investigators are also trying to determine if the Chinese or Russians were able to get access to Clinton's private emails.
Anybody that works around this level of classification knows the sensitivity. It's not something you can talk around, and it's always obvious.
But in the most intriguing new development, Platte River Networks, the Colorado company that set up Clinton's server, told ABC News it is highly likely that a full backup of the server was made, meaning those thousands of emails she deleted may still exist. The company says it's cooperating with the FBI. Clinton continues to brush off questions about her emails as a partisan distraction.
I think that this is the usual partisanization, which I may have just made up a word, of anything that goes on. And I've been at this for a really long time.
Republicans say it's much more than that.
She should come clean and deal with this. This is an issue. It's not a distraction for sure.
Hillary Clinton's troubles may be creating an opening for a Democratic challenger. Bernie Sanders is already surging, and Joe Biden spent last week weighing his options as he considers running. Hillary Clinton is now here on Martha's Vineyard, where she saw President Obama at a birthday party for a mutual friend. White House officials are watching warily as Vice President Biden makes his decision. As one top official told me, it would be, quote, awkward if Biden decides to run The president has to remain neutral in a race that pits his former Secretary of State against his vice president. Martha?
And since that report from Jonathan Karl on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos ended with a reference to the possibility that Vice President Joe Biden may run and challenge Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, I want to show this next clip from CNN's State of the Union. Dana Bash had on Joshua Alcorn, who's the head of the Draft Biden movement. He was a friend of Vice President Biden's late son, Beau Biden, and there's an introduction about how the death of Beau Biden may be one of the driving forces behind this possible Biden campaign for president, and then some questions from Dana Bash to Joshua Alcorn that I'll talk about after you watch that clip over here.
Hillary Clinton made her appearance at the Iowa State Fair yesterday, facing opponents both real and imagined. This week, not one but two potential challengers popped up. Rumor number one, that Al Gore, who's rarely seen in public these days, could jump in the race, but that was quickly shot down by a spokesperson. Gathering more steam, though, reports that Vice President Joe Biden is seriously considering running for president. And here to tell us how he'll make the decision is Josh Alcorn, who is a senior advisor to the Draft Biden campaign. Josh, thanks so much for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Dana.
All right, so let's start with the context here. You were a close friend of Beau Biden, who was the vice president's son, who, of course, passed away in late May. There was a report that he urged his father to run because he believed that not only believed in his father, but also knows him as somebody who doesn't care about leaving and making money, and that he should stay in public service. What do you know about that?
You know, I know that Beau Biden believed that his father would make an incredible president. He believed that in 1988 when the vice president ran the first time. He believed it in 2008 when he ran most recently. So there's no doubt in my mind that Beau thought his dad would make an incredible president.
And he told you that?
I mean, Beau and I had a lot of conversations, Dana, about 2016. We would sit together in the office kind of talking about who our fundraisers would be, who our pollster would be, but we were always talking about his race for governor of Delaware in 2016. That was his focus, and that was our 2016.
You almost had me there.
I know. I led you through with it, yeah.
So the Bidens haven't asked you to stop doing this, to begin this Draft Biden campaign.
Sure.
And that gives you hope, I would imagine.
You know, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't the right thing to do. For about 2 weeks before I joined Draft Biden, I was hearing from friends of mine and Beau's who had hosted fundraisers for us, kind of in the Biden network of supporters. I've been hearing from people who were on the ground in Iowa, Iowans who I helped organize for the vice president in his run in 2007, calling me and saying, is he going to get in the race? He should get in the race. We would love to see him on the debate stage in Las Vegas in October. And so this is the right place for us right now, for me to be right now.
So that was kind of weird. In the middle of that answer, I just showed how that guy, Joshua Alcorn, he started an answer that sounded like he was going to say Beau Biden told me he wanted his father to run in 2016, that then he did this switcheroo that it was really Beau Biden was talking to me about how he wanted to run for governor, and that was, I don't know why he did that, especially since it was so obvious, and Dana Bash even pointed it out, but having shown that clip of the possibility of a Biden run and the previous one about how possible weaknesses from Hillary's email scandal may put other candidates in the race, I want to show a clip from NBC's Meet the Press. Chuck Todd went and talked to Democrats who were going to the Iowa State Fair, and a lot of them had doubts about Hillary Clinton. It's almost the reverse of that ABC clip I showed where Matthew Dowd talked to the Trump supporters who have no doubts because they don't seem to really have much in the way of critical thinking skills. At least the Democrats are doing a little bit of critical thinking over in this NBC clip from this morning here.
If it weren't for Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton's struggle to maintain control and Bernie Sanders' rise would be probably the biggest news of the summer. As 2016 candidates descend on Iowa for food on a stick and more than a little campaigning, there are growing concerns among Democrats about Hillary Clinton's campaign, and it is producing whispers that Vice President Biden or even former Vice President Gore, you pick the big-name Democrat, should jump into the race. Well, I spent part of the weekend talking to Democrats at the Iowa State Fair, and you won't believe what they're thinking.
In 2008, I supported her because she's a female and she seemed to relate to us, but now it seems elite, and I don't want another Clinton and I don't want another Bush.
At the Iowa State Fair,
How are you?
among the deep-fried Oreos,
They're a bestseller.
the butter cow, and more than 70 different kinds of food on a stick,
Really good.
there are rising doubts about Hillary Clinton's campaign among Democrats.
What concerns you about Hillary Clinton?
There's always something. Right now, that something is the drip, drip, drip of questions about Clinton's State Department emails and allegations that classified information was mishandled on her private server. This weekend, Clinton attempted to joke about her new account on Snapchat.
I love it. Those messages disappear all by themselves.
Then she fiercely defended herself to Iowa Democrats.
It's not about emails or servers either. It's about politics. I've just provided my server to the Justice Department, but here's what I won't do. I won't get down in the mud with them.
And then shrugged off questions from reporters.
This is the usual partisanization, which I may have just made up a word, of anything that goes on. It's not anything that people talk to me about as I travel around the country.
But some Democrats I talked to are concerned about how the campaign has handled this controversy.
It does make it seem to me a little bit like she's hiding something.
I feel like she owes you a better explanation.
Absolutely. We're smarter than that.
Voter frustration with political insiders is apparent. 61% of Iowa voters say they've had enough Clintons and Bushes. That includes many Democrats. And these folks are giving Bernie Sanders a long look.
It's nice to kind of have an outsider. And
Yeah.
though he's been in politics for a long time, it's nice to have somebody who's not a Clinton or a Bush.
We're now down to rumors of Gore jumping in.
You think it's about her?
That's gotta sting.
For now, Biden appears more serious than Gore. In fact, one source tells me it's more like 60-40 that he will run. Meanwhile, Clinton sent a not-so-subtle signal to Gore and Biden that it might be too late to get in. She walked the state fair side by side with popular Iowa Democrat Tom Harkin, who endorsed her Friday.
Hillary is doing everything right. A much better and I think more personally involved, if I might say that, campaign this year than it was in 2008. And
Let me bring back the panel. Interesting backhanded compliment there by Tom Harkin. Yeah, as Chuck Todd pointed out at the end there, that was kind of a backhanded compliment. Like, she's doing a much better job, a much more personable, hands-on campaign than she did back when she ran against Obama in 2008. That was an awful campaign. I don't know. I think that actually this time she's benefited from not having candidates who are quite in her league, at least in terms of raising money and profile. Bernie Sanders has been doing a lot better than some people thought, and I'm going to have some Bernie Sanders clips coming up in a minute. First, I want to show a clip of one of her other challengers, Martin O'Malley, former governor of Maryland. He was over on CBS's Face the Nation talking to John Dickerson, who brought up the Hillary Clinton Snapchat joke that you've already seen a couple times. I don't know who wrote that joke for her, where she got that, but she's decided to say that she, loves that she's joined Snapchat because those messages disappear by themselves. And John Dickerson asked Martin O'Malley, should that be a joking manner, trying to get Martin O'Malley to go on a negative tack against Hillary Clinton, which you'll see Martin O'Malley does not take the bait and first dodges the question and then sort of says that trust is a holistic issue over in this clip.
Let's play something she said this week. I want to get your reaction.
By the way, you may have seen that I recently launched a Snapchat account. I love it. I love it. Those messages disappear all by themselves.
So is this funny now, this issue of the emails?
I think the most important issue is whether or not we still have the ability as a people to make the choices that make wages go up for Americans and make our economy work for all of us. I'm sure that, you have a legitimate question to ask, and Secretary Clinton and her lawyers can answer it. For my part as a candidate, I intend to put out the ideas and the policies that make college more affordable for more people, that expand Social Security, that get wages to go up again for a majority of us who are all working harder instead of down. So that's what I'm going to talk about, John, and I'll leave you to ask Secretary Clinton those other questions.
Well, it's great because you're doing exactly what her campaign says, which is the emails are not about trust. People don't care about that. What they care about is whether they trust you to take care of those issues. So do you agree with that splitting of the way the electorate looks at the email question?
I think the electorate actually looks at candidates in a very holistic way. They ask which of these candidates has the independence, the proven ability and experience, and the ideas that will actually serve our nation and move us forward. I've done that. I'm the only candidate in our party with 15 years of executive experience, not just talking about progressive goals, but actually achieving things like the best schools in America, more affordable college, the highest median income of any state in America. These are the things that people care about, and these are the things I'm going to talk about. And within that, voters will draw their own conclusions about ability, about integrity, about trust, and who should lead us forward as a nation.
I don't know. I'm never really inspired much by former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley. I guess he's just not my candidate. I also have some problems with the way he participated in some of the policies that led to mass incarceration that is talked about in the new Jim Crow. That's why there have been so many problems in Baltimore, I think, left over from his zero tolerance policies back when he was mayor of Baltimore, and also when he was governor of Maryland. And he's come out with a policy against mass incarceration, but I'm not sure that I'm a fan of Martin O'Malley either. But I want to move on to another aspect of the Hillary Clinton email scandal. You saw that Martin O'Malley didn't take the bait on attacking Hillary Clinton there, but if you want to see someone attack Hillary Clinton, we can go over to Fox News Sunday, where they had on the chair of the Benghazi Investigation Committee, Republican Trey Gowdy. And I kind of want to show this more for the introduction from Chris Wallace, where he says that the email scandal may be bigger than Benghazi. I didn't think anything was bigger than Benghazi on Fox News, but he sort of tees up Trey Gowdy to let him attack Hillary Clinton, and you can see sort of the breadth or the substance, I guess, of that attack over in this clip.
It began as an investigation into Benghazi, but this week it has morphed into something bigger. Hillary Clinton was forced to turn her private email server over to the FBI amid revelations at least 2 of the emails in her private account contained top secret information. In the latest Fox News poll, 58% of registered voters think Clinton knowingly lied when she said last March there was no classified information on her private server. Joining us now to discuss his investigation is Republican Congressman Trey Gowdy, chair of the House Benghazi Committee. Congressman, what do you think is the significance of the developments this week? First, the fact that Clinton had to turn her private server over to the FBI, and also the revelation that at least 2 of the emails on that private server had top secret information.
Well, Chris, I think it validates what we initially asked her to do in March, which is to turn her server over to a neutral, detached, independent arbiter. We suggested the Inspector General or a retired federal judge. Once it was determined that classified, in fact, more than classified, compartmented information was on that server, the FBI then had jurisdiction. So I wish she had done this in March. We would be further down the road, but she swore she would never turn the server over again, and I guess she didn't. It was taken. It wasn't turned over. It was taken.
Well, you talk about wanting a neutral, detached observer, and one of the questions I have for you is whether or not the FBI, in your mind, fits that bill. How much confidence do you have that the FBI, which is part of the Obama Justice Department, will conduct a thorough investigation, one, into whether Clinton mishandled classified information, and secondly, whether she turned over all of her work emails to the State Department, or whether perhaps that she deleted, destroyed, scrubbed some of those emails?
Well, I'm 100% confident in the first, and I'll tell you why, Chris. From 1994 to 2000, I worked for the Department of Justice under a president named Clinton. And I don't think I knew the political ideation of a single FBI agent. So I think they're the premier law enforcement agency in the world. I think that they are as apolitical as anything can be in this culture, and I think they're going to go wherever the facts take them. But that's with respect to classified information. The completeness or the wholeness of the record, I frankly don't think that's what the Bureau is looking into. That's what the Inspector General wanted to look into. And when the Bureau was through with the server, I hope they will turn that server over to the Inspector General so they can determine whether or not the record is full and complete.
Well, that.
Now, like I said, I wasn't really that impressed with Trey Gowdy's attack on Hillary Clinton there. I didn't think he did that great a job of summarizing what it was that she did, but I also wasn't really that impressed with the defense of Hillary Clinton over on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos. Martha Raddatz had on Trey Gowdy, and I'm not going to show another clip of him from ABC because he pretty much said the same things that he said over on Fox News, but I want to show how Senator Claire McCaskill from Missouri responded, and she's sort of the Hillary Clinton surrogate, and I actually had some questions raised for me from the defense of Hillary Clinton more than the attack on Hillary Clinton, as I'll discuss after you see that clip here.
Senator Claire McCaskill of Missouri, a Clinton supporter. Senator McCaskill, I'd like your reaction to what Chairman Gowdy said.
Well, Secretary of State Clinton was not the first Secretary of State to use personal email, but she's the only one that has turned over tens upon thousands of her emails and asked them to become public. Now she's turned over her server. What this has turned into is just a good old-fashioned political witch hunt.
Senator McCaskill, it is illegal to have classified information, especially top secret, outside a secure facility, correct?
She did not do that. That information at the time it was sent or received was not classified. So it may have been classified later, but Secretary Clinton utilized hard copies for reviewing top secret information.
Secretary Clinton's people are very careful to say it was not marked classified, but John Carr reported that at least 2 emails were top secret. Our experts are saying when you deal with top secret material, you know it's top secret.
Well, I would differ with that, because I know in one instance it was discussion of a drone that all of the information had been published in a public newspaper. So I think that there is...
But shouldn't the Secretary of State know what classified material is when she reads it, whether it's marked or not?
The point is, Martha, that she has been so forthcoming. I mean, they have the entire server. No one that I know of has figured out what motive Hillary Clinton would have to in any way make our country vulnerable. So I really think if you look at this committee, if you look at all the accusations, this has become just a partisan, this is called a Get Hillary Clinton Committee. That's what this committee is about.
Now, I do agree it is kind of the Get Hillary Clinton Committee that Trey Gowdy is chairing on Benghazi especially, and this whole email thing is sort of an outgrowth of the Benghazi investigation. But what kind of got me from Senator Claire McCaskill's defense of Hillary Clinton there was first the part where she said she'd been really forthcoming, which, putting the stuff on her own personal server isn't the most open way of taking care of government business. And then the second thing she said there was that Hillary Clinton actually... that there was no motive for her to make our country vulnerable, which is kind of sophistry in a way, because of course she didn't have a motive to make our country vulnerable, but she did have a motive to make things less than transparent, because she wanted to have control over her communications. She didn't want to turn everything over in freedom of information requests, I guess, or she wanted to decide what was a public record and what wasn't a public record. And as someone who's been a volunteer for the ACLU for many years and has actually tried to be a watchdog on government using the equivalent of the Federal Freedom of Information Act requests, here in California we have sunshine laws where you can make public record requests, and I've done that in ACLU work over the years, trying to see what my local government is doing, and I'd really hate for some government official to shield that through, putting it on personal emails on a private server and all of that. Like I've said in the past, I don't think there's that much of a scandal in terms of breaking the law or government regulations, and I still am not convinced of that. But just hearing Claire McCaskill claim that she's been really transparent and that she doesn't have a motive, well, I think her motive may be to be non-transparent and to have control over who gets to see her communications. And as someone who likes open government, I'm a little worried about that. Not so much about the legal criminal consequences, but just the open government consequences. And so I wanted to point that out based on Claire McCaskill's answer there. Now I want to move over to NBC's Meet the Press and a couple clips of another one of Hillary Clinton's challengers, Senator Bernie Sanders. I know that I have a lot of viewers who are fans of Bernie Sanders as the Democratic nominee for president in 2016. One of the big news items this last week that I posted on my LiberalViewer Facebook page. If you want to join that page, it's facebook.com/LiberalViewer. I posted the news that Bernie Sanders was beating Hillary Clinton in a poll in New Hampshire. That was big news. Even, he does come from a neighboring state, Vermont, and this is Chuck Todd talking about Bernie Sanders drawing big crowds and his the Bernie Sanders phenomenon. And then he asked Bernie Sanders what he can do to keep it going all the way through the election. And, because it's the first question, of course, Bernie Sanders goes into his main talking points about protecting the middle class from income inequality and the rich getting richer. And anyway, you can see it in this clip.
Welcome back. To understand what's going on in the Democratic primary, you have to sample the mood on the ground. And from my 3 days in Iowa, it's clear to me that the Bernie Sanders phenomenon is very real, with the Vermont independent senator attracting huge crowds. Senator Sanders joins me now from Iowa. Senator, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you.
I have to say, I was both in Clear Lake, watched you there, watched you in the soapbox yesterday, where you had so many people. The fair stop. Forget Trump, forget Hillary Clinton. I think you might have had the biggest crowd yesterday. Why do you think you're resonating at this point? And how do you take this from being a movement that seems big in August, and how do you keep it from fading 5 months from now?
Well, Chuck, I think we are resonating all over this country and here in Iowa because we're talking about issues that are life and death issues to the American people. And that is the collapse of the American middle class, the massive and grotesque level of income and wealth inequality in this country, the fact that we are the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee health care to all people, the fact that millions of working class families are now finding it very, very difficult to send their kids to college, and the basic fact that people are working longer hours for lower wages, and meanwhile almost all of the new income and wealth is going to the top 1%. And then you add to that a campaign finance system as a result of Citizens United that allows billionaire families like the Koch brothers and others to literally buy politicians and corrupt the American political process.
Senator,
add all of that together, and the American people are saying enough is enough.
Maybe the American people are saying enough is enough. You can let me know what you think down in the comments section, or if you're one of the live viewers. I've been watching, I think I'm up to almost 180 live viewers, which makes me really happy. After not doing live broadcasts for a couple weeks, I was worried you wouldn't be showing up, but I'm glad you're here, especially with my new slightly earlier start time. I want to show one more clip of Bernie Sanders before I get on to my one clip topics at the end of the show. This is the last clip on the Democratic side of the race. Bernie Sanders talking to Chuck Todd on NBC's Meet the Press, where Chuck Todd asks him about the Black Lives Matter movement, and that was a controversy I covered a couple weeks back, where Bernie Sanders was interrupted at one of his speeches by Black Lives Matter activists, and they spoke for like 20 minutes and he never regained the stage. And apparently he put out some email apology. It was a BuzzFeed headline, and you'll see he disavows it and says it was a staffer, not him. And I actually don't think his answer is that great to Chuck Todd's question about whether he's reaching out to the Black Lives Matter group, because his answer is, well, we're reaching out to all groups. Isn't that almost like saying all lives matter in response to Black Lives Matter? Well, anyway, you can let me know what you think after I show you that final Bernie Sanders clip from NBC This Morning here.
BuzzFeed has an article out this morning. Headline is this: Sanders campaign reaches out to Black Lives Matter activists. Quote, "I apologize. It took our campaign so long." Tell me more about it.
Well, that was sent out by a staffer, not by me. Look, we are reaching out to all kinds of groups. Absolutely. I met with folks at Black Lives Matter. We're reaching out to Latino groups. We're reaching out to the unions. We're fighting to expand Social Security, and we're reaching out to senior groups. We're reaching out to healthcare groups because we believe that everybody in America is entitled to healthcare. We're reaching out to everybody. But on this issue of Black Lives Matter, let me be very clear. The issue that they are raising is a very, very important issue. And there is no candidate for president who will be stronger in fighting against institutional racism and, by the way, reforming a broken criminal justice system. Chuck, we have more people in jail in the United States of America than any other country on earth. And we need real changes. We need to do away with the militarization of local police departments. We need to do away with minimum sentencing. We need education and jobs for our young people rather than jails and incarceration.
I understand that, but you said a staffer put it out, but you felt an apology was necessary?
No, I don't. I think we're going to be working with all groups. This was sent out without my knowledge.
Fair enough.
Well, like I said, that's definitely a disavowal from Bernie Sanders of a headline that's in BuzzFeed. I'm shocked that something that was in a BuzzFeed headline turned out not to be true, but you can let me know what you think about that answer from Bernie Sanders, and whether saying that he was reaching out to all groups, not just Black Lives Matter, was kind of like saying all lives matter in response to Black Lives Matter, which is sort of the previous controversy from a couple of weeks ago, also involving Martin O'Malley from Netroots Nation, where he said white lives matter, all lives matter. And anyway, that's the last clip, like I said, that I want to show covering the Democratic side of the presidential campaign. But the next clip is actually on the topic of race and Black Lives Matter. It's from HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher, where one of his guests was this rapper, whose name I want to make sure I get correct. Talib Kweli, because I had never heard of him until I saw him on Real Time with Bill Maher. Maybe that makes me culturally ignorant, I'm sorry to say, but I just wanted to show how they said that the Black Lives Matter movement, what the Black Lives Matter movement has achieved in the 1 year since Ferguson, and it is actually a little bit more optimistic than something I showed, I think, from Cornell William Brooks last week. I think that's who the clip was from last week, who talked about how there's been a seismic shift in attitude, but kind of a slow move on legislation. Here they seem to be a lot more optimistic about legislation, as I'll discuss after you see that clip here.
So, you know, since then, it's been a year, but 40 laws on the positive side have been passed in 24 states.
That's right.
About cameras, cops have to have cameras, racial bias training, limits on the militarization of the police.
That's right.
So there has been some positive that has come out of it.
Yes, I mean, you know, it's our duty to stand up and not obey unjust laws. It's our duty to stand up for our rights. And, you know, what's interesting about Ferguson is that these are young people, these are women, these are black people, white people, queer people, a community that came together, working class students who weren't activists, saw Mike Brown's body laying in the streets for 6 hours. They saw the systemic racism. The Department of Justice came down because of what happened in Ferguson and let mainstream America know, look, these people ain't bugging out. This is a real problem. The people been seeing it. They stood up, and the thing about the people in Ferguson is they did not go home. When the tanks came out, they stayed in the streets. Matter of fact, they still in the streets now. I got friends of mine who got arrested, you know what I'm saying? Cornell West, Jasiri X got arrested on Monday. So They changed the conversation along with the young women who started Black Lives Matter after Trayvon Martin was murdered.
So that was really the only discussion of race on the shows that I normally cover. It didn't really show up in the Sunday morning shows. I guess one of the things about the Donald Trump campaign is it takes up so much airtime, and the 2016 presidential campaign is taking up so much airtime that a lot of issues don't really get as addressed as they would if it weren't 2016 presidential campaign season in August 2015. But I did want to show that clip. I think that they were a little bit optimistic about how far legislation has come. I think there's a lot more to do in terms of changing laws, but you can let me know what you think down in the comment section. So the next topic I want to talk about briefly using one clip is another topic that I thought got really short shrift on the Sunday morning news analysis shows this morning. It was John Kerry going to Cuba and opening up a U.S. embassy there. It did not get coverage on any of the Sunday morning shows except for CBS's Face the Nation. They had their reporter Margaret Brennan talk about what happened. This is about 2.5 minutes from this morning here.
Margaret Brennan was there and filed this report.
With a drum roll, just a few pulls of a rope is all it took to symbolically bring an end to the Cold War. The Stars and Stripes are once again flying at the U.S. Embassy in Cuba for the first time since 1961. Secretary of State John Kerry marked the occasion in Havana.
A day for pushing aside old barriers and exploring new possibilities.
But Kerry, the highest-ranking U.S. official to visit Cuba since 1945, called on the Castro government to embrace democracy for the benefit of both countries.
The establishment of normal diplomatic relations is not something that one government does as a favor to another. It is something that two countries do together when the citizens of both will benefit.
That announcement excited people here in Havana, and they hope it's going to soon pay off. They're hungry for American products and technology, all those things that have been cut off for so long by the U.S. trade embargo. And they're sick of politics. They hope more American visitors will mean more money. But a half-century-long rift will not be repaired overnight. Revolutionary Fidel Castro came to power in 1959, promising democracy.
If we don't give free to all the political parties to organize, we are not a democratic country. We have fought for the democracy here and for the freedom of our people.
At the height of the Cold War, his embrace of communism under the umbrella of the Soviet Union led the U.S. to shutter its embassy and cut ties in 1961. Scores of exiles fled to American shores. A failed U.S.-sponsored invasion and Castro's decision to allow Soviet nuclear missiles on the island nation just 90 miles off the coast of Florida nearly sparked a war. But pressure on the Castro government may build now that a sometimes convenient enemy is a friend once again.
We are now engaged in diplomacy and able to help to shed light on what is happening in Cuba, help to understand ourselves better what is happening in Cuba.
President Obama's decision to reach out has not persuaded the U.S. Congress to lift the trade embargo, which keeps both American companies and the Cuban people cut off from each other. That limits the renewed relationship, and it's going to take hard work to repair a...
So I cut that off a little before the end, but I think that was a good report from Margaret Brennan on CBS's Face the Nation on Cuba, and I don't quite understand why the opening of an embassy in Cuba by John Kerry and the speech he gave that was kind of critical of Cuba that was broadcast to all of Cubans and accurately translated from the reports I read. I don't know why that didn't get more coverage on the Sunday morning news analysis shows, but apparently it wasn't big news compared to Donald Trump giving kids rides in a helicopter at the Iowa State Fair. You can compare those two news events yourself and tell me which one deserves more coverage. Another issue that didn't get coverage on any of the Sunday morning news analysis shows, really, other than questions to a couple of the presidential candidates, was the issue of ISIS in Iraq and Syria and the new front from Turkey. The U.S. not only has Turkey been increasing their airstrikes on ISIS as well as the Kurds who are fighting ISIS, which is a big complication, but Turkey's been allowing the U.S. to use Turkish air bases, which means they can get to Syria in like 15 minutes instead of like an hour or 2 hours from some report I saw during the week. But anyway, that wasn't discussed at all on the Sunday morning news analysis shows. But over on HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher had some real stats on how local Sunni Arab nations should be able to fight ISIS with boots on the ground on their own without much U.S. help, given the amount of money and time and effort we put into arming those Sunni Arab countries, and they have huge armies. And Bill Maher had former Republican, is it assistant or deputy secretary of state under Colin Powell, Lawrence Wilkerson, who ended up being a big critic of the Iraq War. And here you can see he totally agrees with Bill Maher's analysis on why Sunni Arab countries are lame in terms of their armies being effective, as I'll discuss after you watch that clip over here.
Every time I say that the locals should handle this themselves, the locals being the other Sunni Arab countries, I won't even bring Iran into this. The experts say to me, oh, Bill, it would be great if that could happen, but I'm afraid they just can't do it. So let me ask the deeper question of an expert. Why are Muslim armies in the Middle East so useless? Except for ISIS, Boko Haram, the Taliban, except for the ones that believe in Islamic fundamentalism. Those are really good armies. In fact, we can't defeat them. But the other armies, show that chart that I showed this a few months ago on the show. These are the forces under arms. Egypt, 1.4 million people under arms. Iraq has 800,000. Turkey has almost 1 million. The Saudis and the Kurds have 250,000. Jordan has 180,000. Syria, 600,000. There's over 4 million soldiers. ISIS has about 20 to 30,000. We don't know exactly. They're like Scientology. You can't get... Yeah, look. Look at this. ISIS and the rest of the Sunnis in the Middle East. And they can't take them? So tell me, expert, why are they so useless?
Well, let me give you a little history on this and say that you're absolutely right. U.S. policy... U.S. policy for almost half a century in that region of the world, notwithstanding our overthrow of Mossadegh in '53 and the Shah's collapse in '79 and so forth, which were perturbations, U.S. policy was to be offshore in carrier battle groups, marine amphibious groups, and to move ashore only as it was necessary to protect our interest and keep the peace. That was it. Boots on the ground was out of the question because everyone understood the admonition from the Princess Bride: you don't want to start a land war in Asia. People forget. Iran is in Asia. It's not something we should be doing. I agree with you 100%. It's not something we should be doing. It's something...
And to the question of why they're so useless?
Why they're so useless?
Why 4 million can't defeat 20,000?
A bigger question. Why does the United States always side with the weak government, the lack of courage, the lack of faith, the lack of anything you want to talk about in terms of stamina? Vietnam, look at that government. That government didn't have a country. It had a relationship with the United States. And when a real government came along from Hanoi, it beat them. Look at Iraq. Look at Afghanistan. Why do we always pick the places where there's no one to defend?
Where are the lunatics on our side? You know, I mean... It's funny, you know, these Middle Eastern countries, they don't want to get involved in the Middle East.
Yeah. It's too tough.
You know, why are we doing it? It's like when a dad says he's going to babysit. You're not babysitting, they're your kids. Let them do their... All right, I get it.
I really like that last little joke there because as a stay-at-home dad, I've talked about how I was the victim of sexism, or that I saw the sexism in society because of all the times I would take my daughter to the supermarket or to some other place, and people ask, "Oh, babysitting for the day," even though I was like the primary caregiver. Not that my wife didn't put in a lot of time herself; she definitely did. But the overall analysis of the Middle East there, I actually agree with most of what Bill Maher and Lawrence Wilkerson said. I talked, I think, over a year ago about how I thought that the local Sunni Arab nations really needed to use the troops and arms that we've given them over many years. I don't know why it is that the U.S. has to be the leader in so many ways militarily when there's over 4 million armed troops in those Sunni. Well, I noticed Bill Maher included Syria in that calculation. That army probably shouldn't be added into the calculation because Assad is not really, well, I don't know. Assad is actually over on the side of Iran, so Assad is against ISIS. I guess if you're fighting ISIS, you could theoretically include the Syrian troops. But anyway, that's the one clip I wanted to show on the ISIS, Syria, Iraq situation, and it's not even from the Sunday morning news analysis shows. By the way, one clip I'm not going to show, the last clip is also from HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher, but I noticed a comment. I think I've had almost 200 people watching the live show, and one of my regular viewers back this week is clip.
We turn to the State of our Union, which this morning is...
I don't know how that happened. I had to turn on the audio. Clip Culture 5. LV, what about the joke support to Hillary with $1 million in advice? Yeah, there was one thing where Bill Maher pretended that he was going to give $1 million to Hillary and instead said, "I'm going to give you $1 million." And then there was a big pause. Worth of advice, and said she had to lighten up and stop her wicked witch of the East laugh, and which I think is actually kind of a sexist stereotype. Sorry. I bring up sexism again. I know a lot of my viewers don't like it when I do that, but there were a couple clips I almost took, and that was one of them, but I didn't take that clip. The last clip I want to show is actually from HBO's Real-Time Overtime segment, which is available in full on YouTube for free. I put a link down to that specifically in the video description, and it's about 12 minutes long, and it includes Sister Helen Prejean, who was on the main show talking about the death penalty, and it was really interesting, but it didn't fit in with the other clips, so I'm not including it. But I want to show a slightly less than 1 minute exchange between them on atheism. She's a Catholic nun, and Bill Maher was raised as a Catholic, and now he's a famous atheist, and she actually seemed to confuse atheism with anti-theism, and I don't know, there wasn't a lot of substance to it, but I thought it was kind of fun to watch, as you can see over in this clip.
By the way, Bill,
so they're all just sins.
You do know an atheist is the one who's against the theism of the time. It's against theism, so
Sure.
hey.
Well, no, it's just the absence of theism, not against.
Or just opposing it, just saying that's not real.
Well, that's
let's
not
get real.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself, and I probably did.
Glad to help.
Okay, Doug, we got to do a comedy act.
I know, you guys humor is really important.
It is so important. It is so important.
You're the straight man over here. Talks on the death penalty.
You could do a ventriloquist act. I could be the dummy. You could be like, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so sorry for my atheist dummy over here."
No, you know all of Woody Allen's good jokes about I don't believe in the afterlife, but I'm bringing a change of underwear.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a lot of good stuff.
Sorry, that clip seems so much louder than the others, but I was kind of amused watching a Catholic nun reference a Woody Allen movie about the afterlife, and even though I think at the beginning there she messed up on atheism being against theism when it's just the absence of theism, and that's more anti-theism and whatever. Like I said, not a lot of substance to that exchange, but you can see the entire real-time, overtime segment using the link I put down in the video description. And actually the real-time channel on YouTube has a large portion of the pay-per-view or the paid broadcast. You have to, or the paid subscriber broadcast. I subscribe to HBO, and that's where I get my clips. But a lot of it is free on YouTube these days, so you can look for that. I'm free on YouTube, except for a little ads, a few ads, as long as they don't get some copyright claim. At my current Patreon level, I'm putting in the ads about every half hour, because I'm getting close to $300 per month from my patrons. If I get that closer to $400 a month, which is my goal, I'll only put in ads like once an hour. If I get higher than that, I'll just put in one ad at the beginning, because altogether, this takes about 10 to 12 hours of work for me to do this show every Sunday, and so I like to make, about $100 a show or more, the minimum wage, something like that, just for my efforts, and the ads don't come close to that, but along with the patrons, I think it all about works out. If you want to be one of my patrons, or you want to support my show through a one-time contribution, if you put your mouse cursor over this corner of my video, thanks to my copyright strike being gone, there should be a link to different ways to support my videos through cash. I also appreciate those of you who just watch and give my videos a thumbs up and share them, and I know you're more likely to do that when I make edited, produced videos. As I said, I'm planning possibly on making one this week about the war between Donald Trump and Fox News and who won that war. If you'd like to see that video, you can let me know about that down in the comment section, and if I have a chance, I will let my patrons get a preview of that video about 24 hours before its public release, and get some feedback from them. That is, not a promise, just a possibility, so look for that later in the week. And my live broadcasts are back. I should be doing them at 6 p.m. Pacific from now on, every Sunday. I've learned to do it a little bit more efficiently. That's why I'm starting a little earlier. I hope to see you all next week at 6 p.m. Pacific, and I hope you enjoy the clips I pick out from the corporate media, and it left you a little bit more informed about the important issues, or at least the issues that the corporate media thought were important this week. And I guess I'll be seeing all of you around the internet.